Joyce Nick walked into the living room, expecting laughter, decorations, and the warm scent of cookies. Instead, she found her father, Richard Nick, standing rigid with a cold expression. The firelight flickered across his face, but there was no warmth. "Joyce," he said sharply, in front of her mother, brother, and aunts, "you've wasted your life. You are a failure. You are no longer part of this family." Her heart stopped. Words stuck in her throat. Shock held her frozen as the room filled with awkward silence. Her brother shifted uneasily, avoiding eye contact. Her mother looked away, silent as always. "Pack your things," her father continued, "and leave. You are not welcome here tonight or ever again." Joyce felt every holiday memory collapse. Years of trying to earn his approval vanished like smoke. She swallowed her tears and left quietly, each step heavy on the frosty driveway. But as she walked into the cold night, a spark lit inside her chest. This betrayal would not destroy her. She would rise. She would thrive. And one day, she would make him understand exactly what losing her truly meant. If you like our revenge stories, please subscribe for more. We drop powerful news stories every week, filled with truth, emotion, and justice. Don't miss the next one. And remember, some stories hurt, but they heal too. Subscribe now, and join the journey. If you like this, I can continue chapter 2 with exactly 200 words next and proceed through all 25 chapters, keeping this style consistent. Joyce returned to her small apartment, each step echoing her father's harsh words. The door closed behind her like a shield from the world, but the sting of betrayal lingered. She sank onto the worn couch, tears streaming, heart pounding. The family she had longed to belong to had rejected her. She thought of the years spent trying to please her father, good grades, perfect manners, holiday gifts he barely acknowledged. Every sacrifice, every smile aimed at him, had been dismissed. Tonight, the rejection had been public, humiliating. Joyce clenched her fists. Anger replaced despair slowly, like fire spreading through cold embers. She refused to crumble. She would not beg for love that was never hers to command. Her phone buzzed. A message from her best friend, Ashley, read, "Call me. You're stronger than you know." Joyce smiled faintly and dialed. Words poured out, her shock, her sorrow, her resolve. Ashley listened patiently, then said firmly, "It's time to take control. You don't need them. Build your own life, your own family, your own success. Show them your worth." Joyce wiped her tears. That night, she made a silent vow: she would not just survive. She would rise, independent, unstoppable, and one day, her father would see exactly what losing her truly meant. The next morning, Joyce woke determined. She had no family support, but she did have Ashley, her steadfast friend. They met at a quiet cafe, sipping coffee as the world bustled around them. Joyce recounted every detail of the Christmas humiliation, every cutting word her father had spoken. Ashley listened silently, nodding, her eyes filled with empathy. "You don't need their approval, Joyce," she said finally. "You need a plan. If you want to make him understand what losing you means, you have to rise above. Not with anger, through strength, success, and independence." Joyce nodded. The idea excited her. She had always been smart and capable, but fear of rejection had held her back. Tonight, that fear would no longer have power. They spent hours discussing possibilities. Joyce could invest in her small business idea, reconnect with supportive mentors, and strengthen her network. Social media could show subtle glimpses of her achievements, just enough to make her absence felt without confrontation. By the time they parted, Joyce's heart felt lighter, her purpose clearer. Ashley hugged her tightly. "This is your time," she whispered. Joyce smiled, feeling the first spark of hope and fire. Her journey had begun, not with revenge yet, but with a quiet power growing in the shadows. Joyce spent the next few days focusing on herself. She woke early, dressed neatly, and walked to her small office. The work she had postponed, fearing judgment or failure, suddenly felt like a lifeline. Each completed task built her confidence, brick by brick. She called old mentors she had admired, people her father had always dismissed. They remembered her talent and drive, encouraging her to pursue a bigger project she had shelved years ago. "You have everything it takes, Joyce," one mentor said. "Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." At home, she created a plan for her business. Marketing ideas, financial goals, even small personal milestones filled her notebook. Each success, no matter how minor, became a trophy. For the first time in years, she celebrated herself quietly, without seeking approval. If you like our revenge stories, please subscribe for more. We drop powerful news stories every week, filled with truth, emotion, and justice. Don't miss the next one. And remember, some stories hurt, but they heal too. Subscribe now, and join the journey. Joyce also took care of her health. Early morning walks, short workouts, and meditation helped clear her mind. Her reflection in the mirror grew stronger, sharper, and more determined. That night, she sat by her window, looking at the stars. Her father's words still stung, but now they fueled her. She was no longer the frightened girl who obeyed blindly. She was building a life he could never ignore. As Joyce worked on her business and personal growth, she began learning more about her father's world. Curiosity led her to subtle observations, social patterns, family habits, and even business decisions he thought were private. She realized he relied on appearances and pride more than genuine skill or loyalty. Her father loved control. He demanded respect and admiration from everyone, but beneath the confidence, he feared failure and losing face. Joyce saw opportunities in his arrogance. The man who disowned her was fragile in ways he never imagined. She also noticed how he depended on the family's wealth for social standing. Friends and colleagues often flattered him, but it was all surface-level admiration. Behind closed doors, he worried about influence, connections, and reputation. Joyce's absence was not yet felt, but she knew she could use this knowledge strategically. With Ashley's help, Joyce began documenting observations, tracking her father's patterns, and identifying the people he valued most. She was not planning direct confrontation, yet. First, she would grow stronger and more independent, quietly preparing the groundwork. That night, Joyce smiled at her reflection. The fire inside her burned brighter. For the first time, she understood. She had the tools not only to thrive but to make her father realize, when the time came, what losing her truly meant. Weeks passed, and Joyce's dedication began paying off. Her business idea, once small and uncertain, started showing promise. A local investor, impressed by her proposal, agreed to fund her project. The excitement coursed through her veins. This was her first real victory since being disowned. Joyce called Ashley immediately. "It's happening," she whispered, trying not to yell in excitement. "They're taking me seriously. I finally have proof I can succeed on my own." Ashley cheered, "I knew you could do it. This is just the beginning. Keep building. Show them, quietly, that you're unstoppable." Joyce smiled and reviewed her plan. Each step mattered: marketing, outreach, and small but consistent wins. She realized that success was sweeter when earned independently, without relying on family approval. That evening, she allowed herself a small celebration. A quiet dinner by candlelight, reflecting on her journey. Her confidence grew not only because of the financial milestone but because she felt capable, strong, and worthy. Deep down, she knew this first win was more than a business victory. It was a message to her father. He hadn't noticed yet, but Joyce was reclaiming her power, quietly proving that losing her would cost him far more than he ever imagined. Joyce began sharing small achievements with her professional network. Not directly to her father, but carefully, so word would eventually reach him. A press mention of her startup's success, a local award for innovation, and positive social media feedback all painted a picture of progress. She noticed it, the subtle ripple. Her father's distant relatives mentioned her name with curiosity, not dismissal. A family friend remarked at a holiday gathering, "I heard Joyce is doing well." Impressive for someone so young. Joyce smiled quietly, savoring the first recognition outside her controlled circle. At home, she created a personal journal, tracking her progress, goals, and milestones. Each entry reinforced her independence, reminding her that she didn't need approval to feel valuable. Her confidence grew daily, and the humiliation she felt on Christmas began to fade. She met Ashley again at the cafe. "He's going to start noticing soon," Ashley said. "And when he does, it'll matter. Not because he's earned respect, but because he's losing you." Joyce nodded, feeling a quiet thrill. This was not revenge yet, not in a direct sense, but a soft, powerful proof that she was no longer the powerless daughter he had dismissed. Her absence would be felt in ways he couldn't ignore. Late at night, Joyce sat by her window, staring at the city lights. Her heart ached for the family she had lost, yet a new sense of clarity emerged. The pain of being disowned was sharp, but it no longer consumed her entirely. She realized she had a choice: remain bitter or transform her hurt into power. Memories of Christmas flashed before her, the laughter she had expected, her father's cold words, the silent looks from relatives. She felt anger, sadness, and even a hint of grief. Yet beneath all that, a determination simmered. She would not let their cruelty define her life. Joyce took out her journal and wrote, "I am not their failure. I am my own success. I will thrive, and when they see it, they will understand the cost of their cruelty." She thought of Ashley's words, "Show them your worth." But Joyce knew worth was not just about proving her father wrong. It was about reclaiming her life, confidence, and independence. By the time she closed her journal, Joyce felt lighter. She was no longer the frightened girl who obeyed blindly. She was becoming someone unshakable, someone who could quietly make her absence resonate where it mattered most. Joyce knew that success alone would not be enough to make her father feel her absence. She needed a plan, quiet, careful, and strategic. She spread her efforts across career, finances, and social influence, all while keeping a low profile. With Ashley's help, Joyce mapped her father's routines, his social circle, and the people he valued most. She noted where her absence could create subtle ripples, ways to show that she was thriving without him. Every connection she made, every professional milestone, became a tool for eventual impact. Her evenings were spent refining her skills: public speaking, negotiation, and financial management. She enrolled in online workshops and read books her father had once mocked her for wanting to study. With each lesson, her confidence expanded, and she felt her power growing. Joyce also prepared emotionally. She practiced responding to potential encounters with calm, poised composure. Anger might feel satisfying, but she knew dignity would have a longer-lasting effect. By the end of the week, Joyce's plan was clear: rise quietly, build undeniable success, and let her father witness the cost of pushing her away. Revenge would not be loud, it would be inescapable, in the form of a life fully reclaimed. Joyce realized she couldn't grow alone. She reached out to distant relatives and family friends who had quietly disagreed with her father's harsh ways. These were people who had witnessed the tension but never spoke up. She approached them carefully, not seeking sympathy, but building quiet support. Calls, messages, and occasional coffee meetups created a network of allies. They admired Joyce's resilience and offered advice, encouragement, and connections that her father could never control. Each interaction strengthened her confidence and reminded her she wasn't as alone as she had once felt. One evening, a former family friend mentioned a business opportunity Joyce had once been overlooked for. "Your father doubted you," the friend said, "but I always believed you had the skill. Don't let him define your path." Joyce's heart swelled. Their faith in her became fuel for her growing fire. Ashley reminded her, "Every ally you reconnect with is another reflection of what he lost when he pushed you away. Quietly, he'll start noticing." Joyce smiled, a calm determination settling in. The plan was unfolding. She was building her life, her success, and her influence, all while her father remained unaware. Soon, the absence he ignored would speak louder than words ever could. Joyce decided it was time to make her absence felt, but subtly. She didn't confront her father directly. Instead, she let the world see her thriving life in small, controlled ways. She accepted an invitation to speak at a local women's entrepreneurship event. It was a chance to demonstrate her skills, leadership, and independence. The audience applauded her insights, praising her poise and intelligence. Photos circulated online, reaching some of her father's social circle. Joyce didn't boast, she merely shared her experiences professionally. Her father, meanwhile, received a call from a mutual friend. "Did you see Joyce's talk?" "She was impressive," the friend said. He shifted uncomfortably, pride mingling with unease. Joyce didn't need to know the details, she could see the subtle effect through mutual connections and small mentions. Back home, Joyce reflected on the day. Her confidence was stronger than ever. She had begun taking control of her narrative, showing her value without needing to speak directly to the person who had rejected her. Ashley sent a congratulatory message, "He's noticing now." Every small achievement chips away at his false sense of control. Joyce smiled, knowing the real revenge wasn't confrontation. It was letting success speak louder than anger ever could. A week later, Joyce received an unexpected envelope in the mail. It was an invitation to her family's annual New Year's gathering. Her father's handwriting was clear and formal, almost rehearsed. "Joyce, you are invited. Attendance is optional." Joyce held the card in her hands, heart pounding. For a moment, old doubts crept in. Could she attend without reliving the pain? Could she show up without giving him the satisfaction of seeing her struggle? She called Ashley immediately. "I got the invitation," she said, her voice steady. "I think this is my chance." Ashley's response was firm. "Exactly. You don't go to apologize. You go to show them who you've become. Confident, successful, independent. Let your absence and presence speak at the same time." Joyce considered the idea carefully. She could attend, make a quiet but undeniable impression, and leave on her own terms. No tears, no begging, just her, fully in control. By the evening, she had prepared meticulously, her outfit, her tone, and her demeanor. This wouldn't be about confrontation. It would be about presence, dignity, and showing that being excluded from her life had consequences her father could not ignore. The night of the New Year's gathering arrived. Joyce walked into the familiar house, but this time she was different, confident, composed, and radiant. Her father, Richard Nick, barely concealed his surprise. He had expected hesitation, maybe tears, but Joyce entered with grace. Guests paused, noticing her immediately. Whispers spread, "She looks amazing. I heard about her business, she's doing so well." Joyce smiled politely, acknowledging the compliments without arrogance. Each step she took reminded her father that she no longer sought his approval. He tried to speak, his voice strained. "Joyce, you came." Joyce nodded calmly. "I did," she said softly. No apology, no defensiveness, just presence. Throughout the evening, Joyce mingled with relatives and family friends, sharing updates on her achievements. She spoke with clarity and charm, leaving a trail of admiration in her wake. Her father's pride struggled against the discomfort of realizing he had dismissed her potential. Ashley watched discreetly from the corner, giving a small thumbs up. Joyce's plan was working. Her presence alone was making waves, proof that she could thrive without approval and that her absence had been felt, quietly but powerfully. By the end of the night, her father could no longer ignore the truth. Losing Joyce Nick had consequences he was only beginning to understand. At the gathering, Joyce noticed the subtle glances her father tried to avoid. Relatives whispered about her accomplishments, her startup's growth, her awards, and the confident way she carried herself. It was the first time her father faced undeniable evidence of her independence and success. Joyce smiled quietly, listening as distant cousins commented, "I never imagined she'd come this far." Even neighbors she hadn't seen in years approached her, asking about her business and praising her achievements. Each interaction reinforced the message she wanted to send: she was thriving without him. Her father attempted small talk, but his words faltered under the weight of her presence. He could see the respect and admiration Joyce commanded, yet he could not claim it for himself. The control he once wielded over her life had vanished. Ashley leaned closer, whispering, "He's feeling it now. Every compliment, every success, it's hitting him." Joyce nodded, a calm satisfaction settling in. This wasn't about humiliation, it was about truth and balance. By the end of the night, Joyce had transformed the gathering. Her father's perception had shifted subtly, painfully. He now realized that rejecting her had allowed her to rise, independent, powerful, and undeniably significant. After the gathering, Joyce reflected on the evening. She had not spoken angrily, nor had she demanded attention, yet the effect was clear. Her father was unsettled. The whispers, the admiration from others, and the undeniable presence she had carried made him realize something he hadn't before: Joyce was no longer dependent on him. He had prided himself on control and influence, yet he felt powerless. Even small conversations with family revealed his discomfort. Relatives who once echoed his harsh words now subtly disagreed, mentioning her accomplishments without needing her father's permission. Joyce didn't seek revenge in anger. Instead, she focused on quiet validation. Every achievement, every confident smile, every polite but firm conversation chipped away at the false sense of control her father once held. Ashley called the next morning. "You did more than attend," she said. "You reminded everyone, including him, that respect isn't demanded, it's earned. You earned it." Joyce smiled. Her power wasn't loud, it was strategic. The psychological impact of her calm, independent success was far more potent than confrontation. She understood now that absence, dignity, and quiet achievement could speak louder than anger ever could, and that her father was learning that lesson slowly, painfully. Joyce's momentum continued. She was invited to speak at a regional business conference. The hall was filled with professionals, local entrepreneurs, and media. Joyce took the stage confidently, her notes precise, her voice steady. She shared her journey, her challenges, and her strategies, captivating the audience. Applause echoed repeatedly, and cameras flashed as she answered questions with poise. Unbeknownst to Joyce, her father had received a brief report from a mutual acquaintance. The details were enough to disturb him. Joyce's accomplishments were gaining attention far beyond family circles. Pride clashed with unease as he realized his dismissal had not only failed to diminish her but had allowed her to flourish independently. After the event, Joyce returned home quietly, feeling accomplished but not boastful. The public recognition wasn't for revenge, it was for her own validation. Yet, she knew the ripple effect on her father would be profound. Ashley called immediately. "He's watching," she said. "Every mention, every article, every applause. It's all making him realize just how much he underestimated you." Joyce smiled, feeling the subtle power of her quiet, undeniable triumph. Word of Joyce's success spread quietly but steadily. Friends, neighbors, and colleagues began mentioning her achievements in casual conversation with her father. Each comment was a subtle reminder: he had dismissed her, and now the world recognized her talent. Richard Nick tried to maintain composure, but the effect was visible. At family gatherings, he could no longer dominate conversations without someone bringing up Joyce's accomplishments. A distant cousin remarked, "I saw Joyce's business featured in the news. Incredible work." Richard shifted uncomfortably, realizing that his control over her reputation had vanished. Joyce, however, never gloating, maintained her dignity. She did not flaunt her success to humiliate him, she simply lived her life fully. The power came from her absence and quiet achievements rather than confrontations. Ashley observed, smiling knowingly. "This is poetic justice," she said. "He wanted to control you, but all he's left with is the realization that he lost someone extraordinary." Joyce nodded, understanding the truth in Ashley's words. Real revenge wasn't about anger or insults, it was the slow, undeniable awareness her father now faced. Losing her had consequences, and the consequences were clear in every proud mention, every acknowledgement of her growth, and every moment she continued to thrive independently. Joyce realized the next step required careful finesse. She needed to test her father's boundaries, showing him she could exist in his world without being controlled. She attended another family event, this time a small dinner, with a calm, confident demeanor. Her father greeted her formally, attempting casual conversation. Joyce responded politely but firmly, never allowing herself to slip into old patterns of seeking approval. She discussed her work and achievements casually, letting details emerge naturally, without boastfulness. Each story of progress, each confident answer, subtly reinforced her independence. Her father struggled to interject, his authority weakened by her poise. He tried to assert control through comments about family expectations, but Joyce remained steady, redirecting conversations with charm and grace. The subtle power shift was evident to everyone at the table. Ashley, observing quietly, whispered later, every confident answer, every controlled reaction, he's realizing he no longer dictates your life. This is when absence and dignity become the most powerful tools. By the end of the night, Joyce had proven a point without confrontation. She could exist in her father's space, respected and acknowledged, while he faced the painful truth. The daughter he tried to dismiss was stronger, independent, and untouchable. Joyce decided it was time to let her father experience the consequences of his choices more directly. She began accepting invitations to family events selectively, always appearing confident, polished, and completely self-assured. Each appearance reminded her father that her presence was not guaranteed, and that losing her had left a void he could not fill. She shared her successes casually with extended family and mutual friends. Mentions of awards, business growth, and community recognition reached him indirectly, through conversations he could not control. Each story, though subtle, made him realize how much he had underestimated her. At a small holiday gathering, Joyce gracefully declined an opportunity to cater to his opinions, answering questions with clarity and confidence. Her calm independence contrasted sharply with his increasingly uneasy demeanor. He wanted influence, respect, and admiration, but she no longer required them. Ashley called afterward. "He's noticing now, isn't he?" she whispered. Joyce nodded. The balance of power had shifted quietly but unmistakably. Joyce smiled, feeling a deep satisfaction. This wasn't about humiliation, it was about letting reality speak. Her father had pushed her away, yet she had grown stronger in his absence. The tables had turned, and now he was beginning to understand the true value of the daughter he had dismissed. Joyce sensed it was time for a pivotal moment. She arranged a meeting with her father, not to beg or argue, but to show him the life she had built. The meeting was casual, at a local cafe, neutral ground where she could control the conversation. Her father arrived, tense yet curious. Joyce smiled politely. "I wanted to share something with you," she began calmly. She described recent achievements, her thriving business, recognition from local media, and the community projects she led. Each word was measured, confident, and without arrogance. Richard listened, shifting uncomfortably. He had expected complaints or demands, but this was different. She was independent, successful, and unbothered by his previous rejection. Every story was proof of what he had lost by pushing her away. Joyce continued, "I've realized something. Being disowned forced me to discover my strength, my voice, and my worth. I don't need approval to succeed, but I wanted you to understand that losing me came at a cost." Her father looked down, guilt and pride mingling in his eyes. Joyce's calm, measured revelation left a mark. Without anger, she had conveyed the consequences of his cruelty. The daughter he had dismissed was now untouchable, powerful, and undeniably significant. Joyce knew that subtlety was key. She didn't need to publicly shame her father, she only needed to reveal truths that highlighted his failures indirectly. With careful planning, she began sharing anecdotes and achievements with people who mattered. Family, friends, colleagues, and distant relatives. A few carefully chosen stories of her perseverance and success reached her father through mutual connections. They weren't boastful, but they painted a clear picture. the daughter he had disowned had grown stronger, wiser, and more accomplished than he ever expected. One evening, a family friend mentioned to Richard, "Joyce handled that community project beautifully. She took initiative that no one else could." The comment, casual as it was, stung. He realized his absence in her life had not hindered her, it had propelled her. Joyce's strategy wasn't about revenge through confrontation, it was about letting reality speak. Every subtle exposure, every acknowledgement of her achievements, reminded her father of what he had lost. Ashley smiled as Joyce recounted the evening. "He's feeling the consequences now," she said. Joyce nodded quietly. She had no need for drama or shouting. The slow, undeniable realization of her worth was far more powerful, and far more satisfying, than any argument ever could be. Joyce's achievements continued gaining recognition beyond family circles. Local newspapers featured her business accomplishments, and community organizations praised her leadership in charity projects. Photos of her awards and speaking engagements circulated on social media, attracting attention from colleagues and friends alike. Her father, Richard, noticed these mentions slowly but unmistakably. He tried to maintain composure, yet each article and post reminded him of the opportunity he had wasted by disowning her. He had dismissed her dreams, yet she was thriving, publicly, independently, and admirably. Joyce never flaunted her success directly to him. Instead, she lived fully, letting the world reflect her achievements naturally. The effect on her father was profound. Friends and family began asking him about her, noting her accomplishments with admiration, which only highlighted his prior harshness. Ashley called one evening, excitement in her voice. "Every article, every mention, it's like a mirror. He can see now exactly what he lost." Joyce smiled, feeling a deep satisfaction. This wasn't about gloating, it was about reality catching up. By letting her life speak for itself, Joyce had achieved something far more powerful than confrontation. The public acknowledgement of her talent and independence forced her father to face the truth. Losing her had consequences, and he could no longer ignore them. A few weeks later, Joyce attended another family gathering, this time with quiet confidence and poise. Her presence was noticed immediately, as whispers of her achievements had already circulated. Relatives and family friends approached her with admiration, asking about her business, awards, and community projects. Richard tried to maintain control, but it was clear he struggled. Every conversation about her success reminded him that his harsh words and rejection had consequences. The daughter he had pushed away was now thriving, independent, and respected, qualities he had taken for granted. Joyce smiled politely, answering questions without arrogance or defensiveness. Her calm, dignified demeanor contrasted sharply with her father's unease. She didn't need to argue or demand acknowledgement. Her life, her success, and her confidence spoke louder than words ever could. Ashley, observing quietly, whispered, "He's realizing the truth now. Every interaction shows him exactly what losing you meant." Joyce nodded. By the end of the evening, the shift was undeniable. The family had witnessed her transformation firsthand. The subtle power dynamics had changed completely. Joyce had achieved what she set out to do. Her father finally understood the cost of pushing her away, and the quiet, strategic journey of reclaiming her life had reached its most revealing moment. Weeks after the family gathering, Joyce's father, Richard, sat alone in his study, reflecting. The events of the past months had left him unsettled. Every mention of her name, every article, every conversation about her accomplishments reminded him of what he had lost. He had believed disowning her would keep her powerless, but the opposite had occurred. Joyce had grown stronger, independent, and successful, qualities he had never fully appreciated until now. Pride clashed with guilt, leaving him unable to ignore the truth. He had pushed away someone extraordinary. Joyce, meanwhile, continued her life with grace and determination. She didn't seek confrontation or validation from her father. Her achievements, presence, and dignity were their own reward. Yet she knew he was aware, and that awareness was powerful. Ashley called, excitement in her voice. "He's realizing it all, isn't he?" Joyce smiled. "Yes, He finally understands what losing me really meant. Richard could no longer control her narrative, influence her decisions, or diminish her success. The lessons he had tried to teach her in anger had backfired. Joyce had become untouchable, thriving in every way he had once denied her, leaving him with nothing but the quiet truth of his own misjudgment. The final chapter of Joyce's journey unfolded quietly, yet powerfully. She had built a life filled with independence, success, and respect, and her father, Richard, had come to understand the consequences of his actions. There was no dramatic confrontation, no shouting, only the undeniable proof of what he had lost. Joyce continued thriving professionally and personally. Awards, media recognition, and community praise became part of her routine, but she never flaunted them. Her success spoke for itself, a constant reminder to those who had doubted her, especially her father. Richard watched from a distance, a mix of guilt and admiration in his eyes. He realized that no amount of anger or control could diminish her strength. She had risen above cruelty and rejection, and in doing so, had claimed her rightful place in the world. Joyce felt no need for vengeance. True victory came from dignity, independence, and self-respect. She had shown, without drama or humiliation, that losing her carried consequences he could not undo. That Christmas, months after the rejection, Joyce reflected with quiet satisfaction. She had transformed heartbreak into power, absence into presence, and betrayal into triumph. She had proven, once and for all, what losing Joyce Nick really meant. If this story moved you, don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more powerful narratives, and share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear what part hit you the hardest. Thanks for watching.